Hi, I'm Roanna. I'm going to be making some random videos, and each one's going to be different because I'm not really sure what to do just yet. So until I hit on something that y'all like, I'll be doing a different video whenever I get to it. Probably each week. I don't know. But saving disclaimer, this video is going to be about mental illness and mental health stigma. It is not meant to diagnose. Please don't try. If you have a mental health concern, consult your doctor. If you have a crisis, please call 911 or call the National Crisis Hotline, which will be in the description of the video. There will be a phone number and a text number if you feel like you cannot talk out loud. Also, I am not a doctor. Again, please don't take this as a means to get help from me. This is just information on mental health, mental illness, and the stigma that surrounds it, just to help fight some of that stigma. To begin with, what is stigma? Stigma is a perceived negative attribute that causes someone to devalue or think less of the whole person. That's by Crystalline Salters Pennault, PhD. The meaning of stigma boils down to discrimination and hate. People with mental illness feel diminished, devalued, and fearful because of the negative attitude society holds towards them. As a result, people struggling with mental health challenges may not get the help they need for fear they'll be discriminated against. This is something that I struggled with growing up. From the age of, I'm going to say at the latest 12, because that's when I first started noticing what was going on in my head. From the age of 12 up to within just the last few years, I suffered from severe depression and anxiety, and I didn't get help because I was afraid of being discriminated against. I was raised with the mentality that if you're crying, you're showing weakness. If you're depressed or anxious, you are weak. If you have any kind of mental illness at all, you are weak. You need to just toughen up, get a life, grow up. That's not right. That kept me from getting the help that I needed. And in total honesty, this is not something I usually parade to the world. This is not something I usually discuss very much because I'm not proud of it. But I think if I had gotten help sooner, if I had been okay with getting help sooner, if I had at an earlier age felt like I could trust a therapist, the 4 attempts I've made on my own life, maybe it would have been 1 or 2, or maybe not at all. And maybe, just maybe, I wouldn't have the scars on my skin that I have now from self-mutilation. So, if you're one of those who's afraid of being discriminated, honey, please, get help. If you're one of those that are doing the discrimination, dude, grow the fuck up. Anyway, pardon me, a little fun there. What is mental illness? Mental illness is a variety of conditions that affect mood, thinking, and behavior. Mental health concern becomes a mental illness when it affects your ability to function. In most cases, mental illness can be managed with therapy and medication. And by the way, it's okay to go to therapy. And if you need medication to feel better, please, take your medication. Don't be afraid. No judgment here. I'm on medication too, and it is helping a lot. How many people are affected by mental illness? 1 in 5 adults in America experience mental illness, and 1 in 5 children between the ages of 13 and 18 have or will have mental illness. In case you're not real good with fractions, that's 20%. That's actually a pretty big number. And this statistic actually is probably a couple years old. So it's probably a little bit more than that. And it's not necessarily because it's a new thing, this mental illness. No, mental illness has been around a long time. We're just better at diagnosing and treating it. Which mental illnesses are the most prevalent? 2.4 million Americans live with schizophrenia. 6.1 million adults live with bipolar disorder. 16 million adults live with serious depression, and 24 million adults, or excuse me, not 24, 42 million adults live with anxiety disorders. And those are just the most prevalent. There are dozens more. These are just the first 4 that come up in discussion. And how about the children? So far up to this point, we've been discussing statistics with adults, but it affects children too. 20% of children between the ages of 13 and 18 live with mental illness. 11% of youth live with a mood disorder. 10% live with a behavior or conduct disorder, and 8% live with an anxiety disorder. And if I knew the statistics on how many children live in the United States right now, I could give you straight out numbers for that right now off the top of my head. I just don't. What causes mental illness? Some mental illnesses are genetic. Some come from your environment. If you're living in a bad environment, that can cause depression, anxiety, what have you. Most commonly, and really the truth behind mental illness, is it's a difference in neurotransmitters. Our brains are not producing enough certain neurotransmitters, or they're producing too much. It is actually a disease of the brain. A brain injury actually can also cause a mental illness. And degenerative disorders can also cause mental illness. I've actually seen something like this in my work. I am a caregiver. I work with older adults, and I have come across older adults with dementia. And with that dementia, they were also depressed or anxious. And a lot of that came from the dementia itself. What are the effects and consequences of mental illness? Depression is the #1 mental illness worldwide. 90% of those who die by suicide have an underlying mental illness. I think that kind of goes without saying. 10.2 million adults have co-occurring mental illnesses and addictive disorders. I'm one of those with a co-occurring disorder, again, depression and anxiety. It may not look like it. Today's a good day for me. And I can tell you from personal experience, having both depression and anxiety, which are kind of opposites in a way, is hell. Serious mental illness costs America $193.2 billion per year in lost earning. That's people calling in sick because they just don't have the energy, or because maybe they're having hallucinations. Yeah, that's a thing. You can do that without drugs. It's not fun. That's any number of reasons why someone is losing money because of mental illness. About 26% of homeless adults living in shelters live with serious mental illnesses. That actually, to me, is not surprising. About 24% of inmates have a recent history of mental health conditions. Again, not surprising. 37% of students age 14 and older who live with mental illness drop out of school. It's the highest dropout rate of any disability group. School can be pretty tough particularly when your brain is not working the way it should be. 70% of youth in detention live with mental illness. And I've added a little thing here in this slideshow that I'm reading off of. It says, having a mental illness does not define your being, value, or status. So true. You are not your mental illness. Mental illness is only a part of you. There is always so much more. Reach out, get help, and get back to living. What are some symptoms of mental illness? Now, this one is actually particularly important for me to say. This is not meant for you to diagnose yourself. This is meant for you to be informed. If you notice some things in this list that's going through your head, some stuff that you're experiencing, talk to your doctor. Do not try to diagnose yourself. That's not what this is for. Get help from a professional. And you know what? It's okay to get help from a professional. I'm just going to nag you on that for now because this is huge. Some symptoms of mental illness: feeling sad or down. And to this, I'm going to add, it's not just the once in a while blues. It's more constant than that. It's not 24/7 like some people think. There are good days and bad, but if you notice that more often than not, you're feeling down, you might want to talk to somebody. Confusion or the inability to concentrate, excessive fears or worries or extreme feelings of guilt, extreme mood swings, withdrawal from friends or social activities, significant tiredness, low energy or insomnia, delusions, paranoia or hallucinations, visual or auditory. I've had auditory hallucinations before. Scary as all get out. Seek help if you get that. Inability to cope with daily problems or stress, alcohol or drug abuse, major changes in eating habits, changes in sex drive, excessive anger, hostility, or violence, suicidal thoughts or actions. If you have these, please get help immediately. Physical problems such as stomach pain, back pain, headache, or other unexplained aches or pains. Sometimes this happens, but not always. And yes, mental illness can actually affect your physical well-being. Trouble understanding and relating to situations and people. That actually kind of goes hand in hand with dissociation. I've been through that. It's not fun. It's kind of hard to describe dissociation, though, so if you're curious, look it up. Also, there will be a website in the description for NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, where you can gather more information if you choose, as well as information on where you can go for help. Mental illness and the brain. Mental illness happens when something in the brain isn't working properly. It's like when the brain gets sick. A number of things can be happening inside the brain. A specific part of the brain isn't working well. A specific part of the brain is working in the wrong way. A brain network could be disrupted, or neurochemical messengers aren't working properly. What are some ways that mental illness impacts life? Unhappiness and decreased enjoyment of life. It can cause family conflicts. It can cause difficulties in relationships. It can cause social isolation. It can actually lead to poverty and homelessness if you're unable to cope with daily life. If that's the case, please get help. There's resources. Use them. It can lead to self-harm and harm to others, including suicide and homicide. Been there, done that. It was mentioned earlier anyway. Weakened immune system. So your body has a hard time fighting illness. This actually is a product of stress. Mental illness causes a lot of stress if you don't actually experience mental illness yourself. This is something you may not be aware of. And that stress has a lot of effects on the body, including decreased immune system. Heart diseases and other medical conditions is another one that can be caused by mental illness. Somehow that just kind of repeated itself. Okay, moving on. What are some things that contribute to developing a mental illness? Again, genetics can be a factor. That's not to say that, well, my aunt is depressed or my mom was depressed, so I'm automatically going to be depressed. It's a possibility, but it's not definite. Some mental illnesses are not genetic at all whatsoever. Stressful life situations such as financial problems, divorce, or loved one's death can lead to mental illnesses. Chronic medical conditions can also lead to depression with good reason. It's not fun being sick all the time physically, and that's going to affect your mind. Brain damage, again, I think this was discussed earlier. Traumatic experiences, that is another big one and an obvious one. Use of alcohol or recreational drugs can do it. Childhood abuse or neglect. Not having a good support system can lead to mental illness. And this one is also really huge because human beings are social creatures. Even for those of us who feel like people just aren't worth it, there's too many people, I don't like people, blah, blah, blah. You do need at least one or two people to talk to. That's partly how the human psyche works. You need a support system. If you don't have that support system, it can lead to some issues, as well as previous mental illnesses. That can lead to issues as well. Can I prevent it? That's a good question. Pay attention to the warning signs. If you're, again, I posted some symptoms earlier in this video, so if you want to go back to that, you can. But pay attention to what's going on in your head, what's going on with your body. If something seems wacky, get it checked out. And hey, even if it's not a mental thing, if it's a physical thing that seems out of whack, check with your doctor. You never know. You could have injured yourself in your sleep, for all I know. I've done it. Be sure to keep all of your appointments and checkups, particularly if you're not feeling well. This is a really huge one. You may feel like you don't have the time or the energy to keep up with your appointments, but please do. It's for you. It's for your own good. It's to help you. And it's okay to take care of you. And if that means meds, if that means appointments, do it. Get help when you need it. Take care of yourself. This slide is titled, I or someone I care about has these symptoms. What do I do? Again, talk to your doctor, and please don't wait. Ask for help. I promise it's okay. How do I help a loved one cope with their mental illness? Talk to your doctor or therapist to come up with a plan, as well as to get some information. That's actually the best way you can go about it, is because doctor or therapist, whatever, they know what they're about. They know the best ways to help. And sometimes the best way you can really help is to inform yourself on what's going on in your loved one's head. From there, you can work out a plan. Sometimes it's just saying, hey, how can I help? And if they say, I can't think of anything, there's nothing you can do to help, just be there. It may not seem like a lot, but to that person, it is a lot. If your loved one is not taking care of themselves, help them to take care of themselves. Give them a glass of water and say, hey, have a glass of water. Or give them a snack. Or offer to wash their hair. Just something. You can try joining a support group. These groups typically consist of people who suffer from a same or similar mental illness and have different ways of coping that they can offer you so that you have more tools in your toolbox. That's how it was referred to for me when I did actually consult a therapist, is having tools in your toolbox. They will give you the tool. They will instruct you how to use the tool, but it's up to you to use that tool for when your mental car breaks down, something like that. I think it's actually pretty nifty. My toolbox has a few very nifty tools. Stay connected with friends and family. That, again, is huge. You may feel like cutting yourself off from the world, or your loved one may feel like cutting themselves off from the world, and that's not a good idea because those friends and family are there to help you. And if those friends and family judge you for being different, screw them. They're not very good friends or family if they're going to judge you for needing help. Keeping a journal is another good way to help. Sometimes just writing out what you're feeling, what you're thinking can help a lot. I did some journaling in my day. I say that like I'm old. I'm not. And it can help just writing it out. What are some treatments for mental illness? Again, a good support team is vital because you can't do this on your own. You're already trying. Like, if you're dealing with mental illness and you're trying to do this on your own, don't do that. Don't do that. Medications can help, such as antidepressants, anti-anxiety, mood stabilizers, antipsychotics, and you know what? Those are okay to take. The thing with medications is it's going to be trial and error because everybody is different. So it's going to be a difficult process finding out what medication works best for you. But it's worthwhile if in the end it helps. I was fortunate enough that we kind of hit on something that works for me right off the bat. But that may not be your story, and that's okay. If the first medication doesn't work and it's going to take a few weeks to figure out whether or not it works, that's okay. Just keep trying. Don't stop trying. Don't give up. Giving up is not an option. It's against the rules. Psychotherapy can also help. Again, this is another huge thing. I've been through psychotherapy or talk therapy, basically. One of the most useful forms of talk therapy, at least for me, and as I can see where it can be applied many other places too, is CBT or cognitive behavioral therapy. That is something that your therapist may bring up, and any kind of talk therapy really is going to be a difficult journey, but that difficult journey in the end is worth it for the possible destination of being better. Like, this isn't something that's gonna just magically go away, but it can improve. There's that light. There is that it can improve, so make the effort. And if people tell you you're just not trying, tell them how much of an effort you really are making, because it may not seem like it on the outside, but on the inside you're fighting a difficult battle. And I know I'm kind of rambling here, but this is, again, something really important to me. You're fighting a difficult battle. A therapist can be the one to give you a stick. And if that's all I got, at least it's a weapon you can use in that battle. Anyway, another interesting treatment for mental illness is brain stimulation. I actually have an uncle who had this brain stimulation. It's a last resort kind of thing. Nothing else has worked. No talk therapies, no medications, nothing would help him. So they did the brain stimulation, and I've got my uncle back. And no, it is not inhumane. They're actually very humane about it. Um, if you need more information on that, I recommend you look it up. There's also hospital treatment and substance abuse treatment. Those can be nifty. In a hospital situation, they will be keeping you in a safe environment where you can get past your crisis. And from there, they will, I think, uh, typically they recommend you find a therapist. They may even be able to give you information on therapists in your area that can work with you. 10 things to say to somebody with an invisible illness. And this is going to include some physical illnesses, not just mental illnesses. How are you doing today? That seems like such a simple thing, but it can mean the world to somebody. Just ask, how are you doing today? Is there anything I can do to make things easier? Again, seems really simple, but it can mean the world. And even if there isn't anything you can do physically, just be there. I'm here, whatever you need. That's a huge one. Again, even if it feels to you like it's not a whole lot, like you feel like you're not really helping them, just by being there, you really are helping them. You're helping them to realize that somebody cares. It must be very difficult to have a disease where you feel so awful on the inside, but it doesn't show on the outside. That one, again, is huge. It's huge, huge. Yes, I went there. I am so sorry that you are going through this. Again, that can be pretty big as well, because that validates in their mind that it's okay to have these feelings. They don't like the feelings. I don't blame them, but it's okay. I wish I could take away your pain is a huge, oh man, these are all huge, man. Okay, I'm just going to say these are all huge because they are, but it shows compassion. And a lot of times, that's what people need is compassion. I hope you are feeling better soon. I will keep you in my thoughts and prayers. And thoughts and prayers may not seem like something that's going to help, but sometimes just knowing that someone's thinking about you, maybe even praying for you if that's your thing, can be a mood lifter. Because that tells someone, wow, this person cares about me. I may not completely understand your disease or what you're going through, but I would like to. That shows that you are willing to help by informing yourself. And I am so sorry I judged you before understanding your disease. Again, that's a big one, because if you've judged somebody without really understanding what they're going through, to them, it feels like you've just invalidated what they're going through. And that just makes them feel worse. If you want to make them feel better, validate them. Tell them that they are valid to have, that these feelings are valid. Behaviors are a different story, one I may or may not get into. But feelings are valid. What can I do at home? Stick to your treatment plan. If your treatment plan means therapy once a week and taking antidepressants or whatever, however often your doctor recommends, do it. Avoid alcohol and drugs. Those can actually exacerbate the problem. Get some exercise. This one seems kind of like it's not going to help, particularly for depression, because when you're depressed, you just don't want to move. You don't want to get up. You don't want to do anything. You just don't want to move. But you got to fight that. Get up. Go for a walk. It doesn't have to be super long. 5 minutes or a lap around the block. whatever you can handle. Just move a little bit. Or if you don't feel like you can go outside, move a little bit inside. Do a few push-ups, do a few sit-ups. Move your body. It'll help. Let someone else make important decisions when your symptoms are severe. It can affect your judgment. It can. Not saying that it will, but it can. So when your symptoms are severe, have somebody else make big decisions for you. Prioritize. That can be really hard to do because when you're feeling bad, your priorities are kind of skewed. So you got to learn to prioritize a little bit better. And I don't know why this is on it. It says try to be positive. And that a lot of people say that, well, you just need to be more positive. But while it can help trying to be positive, it's not exactly helping that person to say, well, you just need to be more positive, because that's not going to fix the situation necessarily. It can help, but it's not actually going to fix it. That I'm going to put in the description. It's all support pages. Oh, LEDS. Let's talk about LEDS for a moment. Wow, this video is getting long. LEDS Medical Database is a program that works with law enforcement and emergency responders to assist persons with a qualifying illness or condition in obtaining medical, mental health, and social services when responding to a request for an emergency service. The information you give LEDS is confidential and protected by state and federal law, and can only be accessed to provide necessary information in responding to law enforcement officers and other responding emergency personnel to assist in an emergency situation. I actually am on the LEDS database. Basically, you tell them what your physical or mental problem is, usually like mental illness. And then that way, say you're a very anxious person, you get pulled over by a cop, and you start to hyperventilate because your anxiety is just that bad. If a cop pulls you over and if they look you up on the LEDS database, they'll see, oh, this person's anxious. So if I see any unusual behavior such as screaming, crying, hyperventilating, anything like that, I know it's because of their anxiety, not because of something else. Same also goes for emergency responders such as EMS. It's basically to inform them so they can better help you. And I'm going to call it quits right there. This actually turned out to be a much longer video, and for that I apologize, but there's a lot of information that I gathered and a lot of stuff I wanted to talk about because this is a problem. We are doing so much better these days with mental illness than we used to, but we have a long way to go. So, again, if you are concerned about your own mental state, get some help. It's okay to get help. You are not weak for needing help. You are human. Okay, enough said. See you later. I'll do another video soon. Oh, well, hi. Everybody say hi to my cat, baby. Hi, baby. Okay, bye.